I would love to hear what you've got to say to offer there, Gary. So jump in.
Well, I was just going to go back to the calcium and the soil testing, Ray, and ask a question about the protocol of the Haney test. Especially here in WA, the protocol that everyone's been taught is to take the soil sample with a dry soil, and then it goes through all the acidics to get the test, and to keep things equilibrium. When we've done the Haney test, we've taken a dry soil test at the same time, and assuming that they put it in water, and that would be enough to make it active. But what's your take on that? Because we totally understand that normal test is totally different to what's happening during the growing season when it's biologically active, etc. So what can we trust that Haney test as a water soluble test that's been taken in the heat of the summer when it's
good question, beautiful question. First, let me tell you this. And when I go do my schools and we're going to do the mastery program, I'm going to go very detailed into that. But let me tell you, the way I came out with the Haney test, it was in 2011. Dr. Rick Haney, the soil microbiologist with the USDA ARS. I knew our soil tests were way off, especially for nitrogen. I knew they just way off. They weren't even close. In fact, some of the labs in the United States won't even give you, some states won't even give you an estimate. They'll just do a calculation. You say you want to grow so many bushels, blah, blah, blah. And they don't even give you credit for legumes, whatever. Because they were so horribly wrong. And so the Haney test, I tell farmers, look at the regular test, the chemistry test, and the Haney test are apples and oranges. Do not compare them. One's a biological test, the other one's a chemistry test. Now, am I totally against the chemistry test? No, it's just one other test. Now, if I'm going to get farmers off chemicals, I am not going to use the old test. It's way off. But if I'm going to make a recommendation, especially if a guy's got 1,000 hectares and my name's on it, I'm going to use the Haney test because I've done it on thousands of acres and I want to back him off. I want to get credit for the organic nitrogen. Now, when you do the Haney test, as long as the temperature's over 55 degrees, that's what's important. The way it works is when you take that soil test and you send it back in, they put it in water and they use, I think it's 40 milliliters of water. What they're doing is, as that water gets in that soil, it becomes activated. And what it does, and they put it on I think they, what do you call it when they mix it very quickly, and what they do is they're bringing up all the water soluble organic nitrogen and all the water soluble carbon, and they're measuring the respiration. What we're finding out, and the Russians knew since the 1900s, the moment you put water, the microbes are like spontaneous generation. They start to absolutely respire very quickly. They knew that since the 1900s. The Russians knew that the moment, the healthier the soil was, the more respiration you got out of them. So the Haney uses the respiration. That's why I love the Haney test, because it uses biomimicry. Wow, a scientist that finally got it right. That's finally saying, hey, it doesn't rain acids, it rains water. Why don't we use water as that solvent and then use the acids of the roots of the three major acids that plants leak: acylic acid, malic acid, and citric acid. Those are the three basic acids that leak and allow minerals to be available. So Rick created a test that says, hey, let's not force the answer. Why don't we use nature's molecules the way she does business, and then let the soil speak to us? Here's the key that makes it very different. The Haney test uses very sophisticated water analyzers. They're about $500,000 a piece. They're expensive. They're not cheap machines. But what they do is when you send your soil, they're picking up, it's a passive test. So what they're doing is picking up all those molecules of organic nitrogen, organic carbon, they can be in amino acids, and now we can give you credit for it. We never had that ability. So let me give you an example. A regular soil test, I would go into a forest and it was low on nitrogen, or I would go into a pasture. It was like barely had any nitrogen. I said, well, how in the world how's this thing surviving? The Haney test measures all the organic nitrogen that we never were able to give credit. I would, like, for example, I walked into a forest, the old test said, no, you only got 13 pounds of nitrogen, actual N. The Haney says, no, you got 90 in the organic form, which plants can take up. Now we know plants can take it up. So what makes the Haney test so powerful? One, it asks the soil. It doesn't force the answer. Two, it's based on biomimicry. Three, it's a passive test. Four, it's a biological test. Five, it's incredibly sensitive. So when you take that test, you better take it at the same time every time, because if you take it in March, it's going to be different in April. And it better be, guys, when you guys have an IPA beer, if I do your blood sample before the IPA beer and after the IPA, your blood's going to change, right? It better. The Haney test is that sensitive. Here's where people get confused. When you read the Haney test, let me give you a secret. You have to think like a microbe. Think like a microbe and think biology. I also think of the Haney test like a blood sample. When you walk into the hospital, it is a passive test. When they do the blood, they stick the needle in. It is what it is. This is your hormonal function, your pH. This is all the molecules. The ancient scriptures used to say, the life is in the blood, Leviticus 11. Well, the life of the soil, the blood of the soil is water. It's the soil water, because it picks up all those constituents. And the Haney test is able to measure that. That's why I trust in it. It's very conservative. The test is very conservative. That's why we're trying to get a lab in South America, Central America, one in Brazil, one in Africa, and one in Europe. Because I am sick and tired of the fertilizer companies making the money. And the only way I can feel comfortable backing the fertilizers off the farmer without getting them a black eye and reducing their yields is through the Haney test. And that's the way I'm going to do it. And I'm going to continue until we get a better test. Now, I'll use several tests, but not just one. Please, don't just use one. I use the old one. I use the shovel. I do aggregate stability, TDN, PLFA. There's many. I check protozoa. Don't do just one test. Tissue test, bricks. Now I can give you an answer. Yeah, because you know what? I'm gonna be working with a sugarcane guy, and his cost right now on 50,000 acres on 20,000 hectares is $10 million on fertilizer and pesticides. And so how am I going to do it? Biology, Haney test, all these things, and how we're going to back them off. We're going to do it. And with the vermicompost and all that, but right now it's the best tool we have. I'll leave you with this last statement about this. Guys, read my lips. All soil tests are wrong. Some are useful.